Hello. Good afternoon. How is everyone doing? Awesome. Good. So thank you for joining today. My name is Anwar Hanif. I lead ecosystem at Canva. And I've been working with AI for the past 10 to 11 years or so. And this is the most exciting and phenomenal time for AI. So thank you for taking the time to join us. It's pretty wild to think that just 2 years ago, the conversation about AI was mostly speculative and mostly about possibilities and potential. I'm pretty certain that around this stage last year, our CMO, Zach, was talking about AI in marketing and the potential of AI in business and creativity. Today, AI is fully operational and transforming how companies work, and the pace of adoption is staggering. The internet took approximately 7 years to hit 100 million users. Facebook did that in just over 4 years. Instagram accelerated that milestone to about 2.5 years. AI tools, they're on an even steeper trajectory. ChatGPT alone took about 2 months to get to 100 million users, with all due respect to Eleanor here. So the question isn't whether AI will transform our work. That ship has totally sailed. The real question is, how do we harness AI not just as a tool, but as a catalyst to supercharge our creativity and amplify our impact? 94% of marketers are embracing AI as a helpful starting point in the creative process. Yet simultaneously, 72% express concerns about homogeneity in marketing. This tension between efficiency and creative differentiation is the core essence of the conversation today. At Canva, we believe that AI isn't replacing creativity, it's amplifying it. The real winners are those that can strategically embed AI into their workflows. AI isn't just about solving a simple problem, it's about finding the right balance between new technology and human expertise to embrace AI as a strategic partner and drive meaningful impact. Leaders should invest in AI tools that build for the long-term needs of their businesses. The way to keep check on whether you're doing this right is by finding tools that slot seamlessly into the most important parts of your workflow, taking stock of your solutions and showing curiosity about how tools can be more streamlined. And then lastly, by also looking at the building blocks of your AI tools. Are they going to be able to grow with your business, or will they be a roadblock to you in the long run? From generating on-brand variations to adapting content across languages and cultures, AI tools help teams scale their creative impact while maintaining quality and consistency. So you may have, this morning at the keynote, you may have seen Canva code on the main stage today. Now anyone can build coded experiences instantly. With just a simple prompt, you can generate functionally dynamic creations in seconds. No coding complexity or third-party tools. This is pretty cool, and this is showcasing the future, how interactivity can be used in helping marketers communicate their ideas. So with that, what I'd like to do is start to introduce our panelists for today. I'll start with, on my left here, I've got Eleanor Dorfman. Eleanor heads Claude for Work and Education at Anthropic. She leads the team responsible for driving the adoption of Claude's enterprise AI offerings, focusing on integrated AI solutions in the workplace and educational settings. At Canva, we're huge users of Claude, and personally, it's been life-changing for me and my family. My wife left her job to start up a startup after seeing Claude write code. She's an engineer. It's changed our lives, not just at work. So I'd like to thank Eleanor and welcome to this panel.
I don't know if I should apologize for your wife quitting her job. Unclear if that's going to be good news or bad news.
It's the best thing to happen.
Okay, then amazing. Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. And next, I'd like to introduce Udi Leragor. Udi is a chief evangelist and former CMO at Gong. Udi joined Gong when Gong was in 2016, when the company had 11 customers and they grew to 3,500 customers, and from $200,000 to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Now, as chief evangelist, Udi plays a role in promoting and shaping the Gong Reality platform, which uses AI to track and analyze customer interactions. giving insights that provide sales and revenue. At Canva, we're huge proponents of using Gong. It's actually one of my favorite enterprise products. We use it in sales, marketing, and partnerships. So thank you, Udi, for joining us.
Thank you, Anwar.
So there's a significant gap between using AI for very basic tasks and versus truly transforming your work with it. Most marketers are using AI for content creation, but only around 52% of teams consistently track AI's performance across campaigns. This indicates that we're still very early in the adoption maturity curve. So, question for Udi. Gong has been at the forefront of AI before the recent wave of Gen AI capabilities. And even perhaps because of your success, some thought leaders have even questioned the need for a CRM because Gong does such an amazing job. So how do you, has the rapid rise of new tools like Claude influenced the way your approach from a Gong perspective? And how are you seeing companies, including Gong, change the way you think about integrating AI into corporate operations?
Yeah, I love that question, Anwar, because we've all come to look at CRM as a necessary evil that's been around for 25 plus years, but CRM as we know it is going away. And I think it's clear to anyone who's not been living in a cave for the last 5 or 10 years. CRMs were originally created to provide value to sales leaders and executives by reporting and rolling up what their teams were doing. But that came at a price of asking the sellers to put in a lot of information and work for the machine. The machine does not provide value to the sellers, only to their leaders. And when Gong was founded 10 years ago, right around the same time as Canva, we decided to turn that equation on its head. And we build a system that provides value to the sellers without them having to lift a finger. And today, to put it in a nutshell, the AI that we provide everyone in the revenue organization provides them 2 types of AI. One, it does and automates for them anything that AI can do. And thanks to companies like Anthropic, that forefront is moving farther and farther away every day. And so we're able to provide more automation and more things that the reps don't have to do themselves anymore. The second way that we help them is that we guide them by knowing everything they need to know on the activities that they're still uniquely qualified to perform as humans. So that is creating customer relationships, creating trust, creating rapport, reaching out with a unique solution to a specific customer problem. So we're helping them with AI guidance while automating away everything that they don't have to do anymore.
Oh, that's amazing. Empowering everyone with their AI capabilities is really powerful. Question for you, Eleanor. Coming from Anthropic, you're on the cutting edge of AI development and implementation. I'd love to hear your perspective on how organizations are navigating this creative tension. While often AI is seen as a driver of creativity, as I mentioned earlier, in our State of Marketing and AI report, we found that 72% of people worry about it, and they worry that the content may lack originality. So, how are you seeing successful organizations balance this contradiction?
I mean, I think to your earlier point about where we are in the maturity curve, honestly, I don't think we even know how early we are, because no one can really know just how far this is going to get in the next year, and the speed of development is rapid. But I think this is an area where we're seeing things start to really improve. And I think Daniela and Mel talked about this a lot earlier, about how when AI is at its best, especially in a work setting, it's augmentative. And so when people really and teams really understand how to harness it, and not just use it as the easy button, but actually take the time to sort of refound their teams, refound their own workflows. Even if they're not an AI native company, you can be an AI native team if you think about it from the ground up. And so I think where we're seeing a lot of the success is people who are doing that. They're augmenting their workflows, they're shortening their timelines, they're building the human in the loop at every stage so that you can get from 0 to, I mean, you saw the keynote, you can get from 0 to 1 incomprehensibly fast. You can automate away in the same way Udi said, all of the work that used to consume non-creative time, and focus the human on setting the vision. So very tactically, it's taking a balanced approach. It's being intentional. What I've seen companies do is instead of doing top-down charters for how they'll use AI, they allow the teams to figure it out themselves. And they do a ton of experimentation because they let it push the boundaries of what they think they're going to do. And when you do that, you can surface the best practices. You can find the folks in your team who are pushing outside of the box. And then you can build AI into your tasks so that it amplifies your creativity and creates space where you can go from vision to production to iterate to iterate to iterate as quickly as possible. So I would say use it to shorten your timelines, keep the human in the loop, and use it to refine and iterate, and don't set boundaries on how you think you can use it because you'll challenge them every time. And so I think the biggest thing is keeping an open mind every week because we're nowhere near remotely tapping into the potential yet.
That's, yeah, it takes a minute to kind of absorb that. See some claps out there. That's amazing, thank you. So we hear from marketing leaders that the sheer volume of AI tools that they have to deal with is, and the volume of AI tools flooding the market, the integrations with AI and existing tools are introducing challenges for the organizations. Organizations are overwhelmed by determining which products deliver genuine value versus adding complexity to already complex workflows. So question for you, Eleanor, is do you recommend an approach to evaluate and select AI tools that genuinely enhance rather than complicate workflows?
It's such a funny, when you think about all of the unintended consequences with things like Canva Code or products like Cursor or Codium or StackBlitz, it's so easy to create a product now. There used to be such a barrier to entry. Ali McKee actually talked about this during her presentation where she had to learn how to code in order to be taken seriously by investors. And now if you just have an idea, you can have a product. And so the sheer volume of tools flooding the market is insane. I was telling Anwar I'm thinking of getting off LinkedIn because of all the messages I get trying to sell me new sales tools. But yeah, I think this is really important. I think in all things at work, you don't implement a new process, you don't implement a new tool, you don't hire someone new until you have a clear answer to what's the problem we're trying to solve. And I think the same thing is true with AI tools. And so you have to start with extremely clear objectives for what you're trying to solve, where it fits, set requirements, start small. Scope out a project, scope out a few different teams who will test it, set success criteria, be very clear what your North Star is and what problem you're trying to solve, because there is a lot of flashy functionality out there that delivers absolutely zero practical value. And it is very easy. I get really excited by Sizzle tools, and I buy them, and then there's shelfware, and they're expensive. And so I think the key thing is focus and intentionality. Run a structured proof of concept, know who your testers are, know what your priorities are, start small, because if you start small and build a compelling proof point with real metrics, which is a question I get all the time, how do we know this is working? How are people measuring ROI? And the answer I give more often than not is most people are doing vibes-based measurement right now, and we're still at the early days of moving from vibes to concrete ROI. And even if it's just vibes, you can acknowledge that because that's actually a good enough answer right now. But be intentional about your objectives, set structured criteria, start small, but then have an open, it's what I said before, have an open mind because you're going to see value that you didn't expect.
I'd love to add to that, huge plus one to everything that Eleanor said. What I would add is that we're seeing that with the huge potential that we've all been exposed to with the foundational models like Claude for Work, which by the way, maybe I'm letting out a secret, both Canva and Gong use inside their product as one of the models that powers our own products. And I'm also proud to say that both Canva and Anthropic use Gong as their revenue AI system. And that brings me to the point that I wanted to add. We're seeing a transition from everyone's experimenting with the foundational model and understanding what amazing capabilities they have. And now they are also looking for specialized business applications that understand what they're trying to do every day without them having to prompt everything from scratch. And so when we look at how our customers are evaluating business applications, we're seeing them typically look for three things. One thing, they have to be specialized. If they're in revenue, they're not going to buy a finance application or use a generic application built for another team. They're looking for a specialized application that understands their specific business process and domain. The second thing is they're looking for something that is configurable so that they can adapt it to their workflows and their outcomes. And the third thing that we're seeing is they're looking for systems that are embedded in where their people live. So sales reps typically live within Gong. So everything they add, they want it to be within Gong, understanding their business environment, their sales messaging, their competitive environment, just like Anthropic and Canvas are using in their businesses.
That's absolutely right. And yes, just to confirm, Canva did work with Anthropic in building Canva code. And I think Mel and Daniela mentioned that this morning. So no secret about that. Thank you.
I do think the integrations point is key because I think again, when I come back to something is really cool and something delivers practical business value, I think there's still a wide gulf in a lot of these tools. And to Udi's point, it is taking what problems are you trying to solve? What data do you need to solve them? What systems do you need? What are the workflows where they're going to be applied? All of that, if you don't set that up front, you can get very caught up in an evaluation. And that's why testing and making sure it integrates with your daily workflows is so important. And how we run trials anytime someone new is testing out Claude for Work is we work with them to set the criteria up front.
Very practical advice, less vibe marketing, more
Although
thoughtful
again,
marketing.
vibes are still very important.
Awesome. So Udi, question for you. So as AI becomes more powerful, the line between what human judgment and machine intelligence starts to get blurrier. How do you decide which tasks should be owned by people versus AI, particularly when building a tech stack that needs to stay both efficient and effective?
I love that question because it's a question I think we're all struggling with every day. They tell us AI can do everything, so what is my role in this world anymore? And when are we abusing AI versus using it for good? And so I think that line is a little fuzzy and it's moving every day, but here's where I find it today and how I look at problems and think whether I should put in the work or just ask Claude or another AI product to solve it for me. So when we're looking to follow best practices, when we want to see what is the state of the art, what are other companies doing in a situation like ours, and many times that's the question we want answers, the models are going to give us the absolute best answer and save us weeks of research. Give me the top 10 ways companies are solving for this problem. Claude can answer that pretty much perfectly. Now, that's where you go to AI. But here's when I don't go to AI, or I go to AI with a different purpose. If I want to do something completely original, and if you do read the book that you're holding in your hand, you'll see 200 pages of original ideas for marketing. None of those ideas came from asking an AI model what to do, because AI model would have given me the top 10 things that other companies are already doing. And so here's a creative use of those models that I stole from one of my fellow CMOs. When he goes into a brainstorming now, he asks AI, what are the top 10 ideas for the campaign he's trying to launch? And then he knocks those off the table because they're so obvious because everyone else is doing them. So he wants his team to come up with another 10 ideas that AI did not come up with. That's how you know you're going to be original. So that is a creative, I want to almost say a negative use of AI, but not in a negative sense, just to use it to negate the obvious ideas. And so that brings me to my answer. When I'm looking to create something creative that nobody has seen before, I'm going to have to use my mind and maybe consult with a couple of other brilliant minds that I've worked with before and do something that AI just doesn't come up with yet because it's not in the state of the art, it's not in the data that it's been trained on yet.
I don't think AI would have suggested using a wrap to deliver
there you go.
Feature requests. So I think that was a very relevant and recent example of exactly what Udi is saying.
Speaking of using AIs, my team created a version of me in terms of communication. So they write comms for me sometimes in my tone. And sometimes it also creates dad jokes because I'm known for dad jokes.
Can we use that for parenting?
It works for parenting too. But I mean, sometimes the jokes are so funny. I chuckle at it and I'm like, yeah, that's funny. So it's a little weird.
That's actually a pretty common use case of using Claude to create a CEO bot, or Daniela can only be in one place at once, and we want to know what Daniela's advice would be on a topic, so we train it to think and sound like Daniela. It's very helpful. No dad jokes, though.
Well, yeah.
I know my dad jokes are not impressing my children anymore. Maybe I need a bot to get some new ones in the repertoire.
Nice. My kids are still young, so we'll see how long that lasts. Cool. So companies are pouring a lot of money into AI, but barely half of marketing teams are actually tracking how their campaigns are performing. While time saving is the most well-known measure as AI adoption increases, it's important to determine how tools are supporting business goals to secure continued investment in the long run. Other ways of measuring beyond time savings can be efficiency gains, performance uplift, revenue impact, or cost reduction. Some of the questions you should be asking yourself as a leader might be, what's the impact on turnaround times? Is there a performance uplift when it comes to audience engagement or conversion rates? how much more content can my team create or produce with AI? And is there an impact on outsourcing? But with all this information, while companies are investing heavily in AI, the most interesting stories often come from unexpected applications and with surprising outcomes. Many organizations discover that AI brings benefits that they never anticipated when they originally intended to bring in and when they started this journey with AI. These unexpected wins can sometimes be more valuable than the original goals that they intended to set out to achieve in the first place. So, Udi, question for you. At Gong, you've had a front row seat in how companies leverage AI for customer insights. Can you share an example of a company that implemented an AI and discovered value in a completely different place from where they originally started?
Absolutely. We have so many interesting examples, but I have to say my favorite is, and for those who don't know Gong, Gong is used mostly by revenue teams to do everything from prospecting to sales engagement to forecasting and pipeline management. But a couple of years ago, we found out that unbeknown to us, about 24 of our customers were hacking the product to use for their recruiting. So they were recording all their candidate interviews using Gong, using it to train their hiring managers and recruiters on the best way to convert candidates, and improving their candidate experience by cutting down dramatically on the time to hire, because now you didn't have to sequentially go through all the interviews. Some of the late stage interviewers could hear the early stage ones and quickly make a decision based on what they heard recorded. And we loved the idea so much that we actually stood up a small team to look into building a Gong for recruiting product, and we worked on that for about 18 months. We put it on ice, not because we didn't get amazing raving fan results, but because we wanted to stay focused on revenue teams right now and not have to split our attention. But that's just an amazing way, and Canva showed so many examples of that this morning, of you put something out there and you just don't know what people are going to create with it. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, Eleanor.
Well, this is a little in the weeds, but MCP is Model Context Protocol, which is a way that agents talk to systems, and it was a hackathon project, and now it's a widely adopted open standard. And so these things just take on a life of their own.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. MCP is all the rage. Talk to any engineer out there. It's yes. Cool. Okay, so I think we.
Before we go to this one, I had a few examples of, and I just want to tie back to my earlier point of keeping an open mind when you're testing this, because the outcomes are going to surprise you so much. And I worked a lot with Claude for Work on internal productivity and working with teams to do business process transformation and drive productivity from engineers to marketers to sales. But when we see people implement, like a few examples of people implementing Claude in the same way that Canva or Gong has into their product, we've seen some pretty crazy things where people have used it to build support bots, and through being able to run queries against all of this unstructured data of all of the questions, they've surfaced more product improvements, and it's helped inform their roadmap and help them build more revenue generating features. Or I work with a few banks who've used Claude to implement fraud detection, and it turns out the same technology for fraud detection can actually help identify patterns of when customers are going through life events, like getting married, buying a house, having a kid, and now they can start to put the right products in front of them at the right time. And there's been this theme I see of people implementing AI to cut costs, and by doing that and to drive productivity and efficiency, surface revenue generating opportunities. And it's why you cannot have blinders on with any implementation, because it will constantly surprise you if you create space in your company and your processes, your implementations, to take it in a different direction.
Wow, it's amazing. Great. I guess we're running a little short on time, so one final question for both of you. What's one practical step that marketers can take tomorrow to leverage AI better?
I think we should start with Udi. I'm in sales.
One step marketers can take tomorrow to leverage AI better. I would start with the example I gave earlier of using it to knock down things that others are already doing if you're looking for an original idea. And once you do have that original idea, AI is the best way to quickly put flesh on that skeleton and expand it and resize it and repurpose it and reformat it. So that is the right way to use AI, injecting your originality and creativity where it really matters.
I honestly think for me, what I've seen a lot is there's a lot of anxiety, sometimes more so than, I just feel like it's an interesting mix that you see of anxiety and and excitement, which is often why you get such unexpected and exciting results. But I think because of this anxiety, people feel compelled to just bolt AI onto their workflows and say, I did it, I'm using AI, I'm using AI, instead of taking a step back, and it ties a little bit to what I said at the beginning, and re-envision your workflow as an AI native workflow. Because if you don't put it in at the optimal points where it can really augment you, then again, you're not tapping into the potential. And experiment a lot. And one thing that I do when I see a really good doc or a really great presentation, I'm like, what prompts did you use? And I try and just learn from my peers as rapidly as possible, because everyone is out there pushing boundaries and get uncomfortable. And it can be really surprising and delightful. I tell myself that I'm still writing the strategy docs that Claude writes for me, but it is because I've gotten really into building the new muscle memory of working AI into my workflows from the ground up instead of just trying to bolt it on.
No, I feel like we do the same at Canva as well. There's no way to really understand this future without living in the future ourselves. And part of that involves using these tools every day, really using them not just as a tool, but as an assistant, as a counterpart. I mean, a lot of times during the day, I spend time with AI, asking it questions, getting it to help me brainstorm ideas before I present things in front of my team. We use it to create documents, get those documents reviewed by AI to give feedback before it's presented to leadership. So there are different ways we've started to incorporate AI into our workflows even within Canva. And the best way we've seen that work is by getting everyone to really start to use that as part of their everyday workflow, and not just as a tool, but as an actual counterpart or as a colleague in your everyday work.
I sometimes, when I have two screens when I'm working from home, just have Claude open on the one screen at all times, because I want it to stay top of mind, because muscle memory is super real, and how we used to work is just so ingrained. I tried to board a flight to San Francisco instead of LA from New York because my muscle memory is just to go right up to that gate and fly to San Francisco, and my boarding pass didn't work. So that is
Thankfully.
thankfully. So I'm here, I made it. But that is very much how you work as well, and it can feel a little uncomfortable and intimidating until you start to feel the unlock and lean into that feeling.
Thank you all for joining us. This has been an amazing session. Thank you for the wonderful panelists for making it here, and for Eleanor to actually catch the right flight.
I made it.
And thank you, Udi, for the book and
Thank you.
sharing that with all of us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
We were rocky from the get-go, never planned for us to get close. Thought maybe you'd be